So, question of the day. How long are you going to be angry? And how is that anger serving you? That grudge you're still holding on to, that you refuse to let go of, that rage that is consuming you about a certain memory or a certain experience or a certain person. How long are you going to hold on to it? How long is it going to own you? And how is it serving you? Continuing to be angry, not making the decision to move on, holding it, replaying it back in your head, having the memories, trying to recall the feeling even though so much time has passed by. How long are you going to hold on to that? And how is it doing? Like, what is it doing for you? You're holding on to this anger, you're holding on to these grudges. How is it serving you? How is it helping you in your everyday life? I recently was meditating on the life of a family member who made me realize that anger is very dangerous. I was having this realization because I was thinking about her life, right? I'm 31 now, but I've experienced her from the position of looking at her as a child all the way now to as an adult. And I've been wondering, like, what happened here? Like, how did she become this way? Like, what happened in life? Or what's going on. And by asking some questions, digging in a bit deeper, I realized that a lot of it, the issues that I was seeing with her, or just the results of her actions or the consequences of her actions and the way people experience her, was due to a lot of unresolved anger. And when you are already angry, there's things that continue to trigger you and make you even more angrier and more consumed. And that was very terrifying to me because I remember her as a young person, being really sweet and kind and just everyone really loving to be around her. She was just a great experience. And then now, all these years later, she is, I don't even know if I really have the words. It's sad, right? It's disheartening. It's like just a shell of who she used to be. Not necessarily saying like that essence or that sweet and kind person is no longer there, but it is buried beneath rage, to be completely honest. And I think about what it's like to transition from being one version of yourself to now having this new identity. Do you have anyone in your life or anyone that you've loved or just had the opportunity to view them and see them and realize that part of their identity is their anger? Part of their identity is, their grudges and the fact that they can't let things go, or they're always exploding, or it seems like they're always consuming. And they might not necessarily always be angry and outwardly or, aggressive and yelling and doing all those things, but they have this palpable negative energy about them, or this palpable rage or frustration. Like anything can set them off, because I feel like we normalize that that's their reputation, but never really ask questions like, well, how did we get here? Like, what is the actual problem? And a lot of it is anger that they refuse to let go of, unforgiveness that is consuming them. And instead of taking the time and making the decision to say, okay, I need to let this negative energy go. I need to let what I'm upset about go. I may never get that apology that I'm looking for, or maybe I need to look at things from a different perspective. And not doing that work leads them to be like a volcano. And that's how I would describe this family member. They're like a volcano that has erupted, and the lava is so hot, it is consuming everything around them. And the dangerous part of that is that because this lava is consuming everything around them, even the most innocent bystanders, right? They get crushed and they get consumed and burned too. And often those innocent bystanders are children. They are people who come into the situation and really have no involvement in whatever it is making that person angry, but they are receiving, the end of that stick anyway. And so I think about that as I go throughout my life, and I realize, okay, like, are there some people or some things that I need to let go of, that I need to say, okay, I'm making the decision to be okay, and to say, you know what, let go, let God, and let's move on. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about that anger that a lot of us, love to hold grudges. I'm a grudge holder, and working on getting past that. In in the Bible, Matthew chapter 6, verses 14 to 15, Jesus says that if you forgive others if they trespass against you, God will forgive you. But if you don't forgive people, God will not forgive you. So that's one thing, or one way where we see that unforgiveness is affecting our spiritual lives and the way that we have intimacy and proximity to God and just experience our relationship with God. But by being unforgiving to others, we're poisoning our relationship with our Father. And that's often something that happens unintentionally because we are just thinking about how we feel, what we experience, and living and reliving that to the point where, again, it consumes us. And then we think, all right, so this person, if I forgive them, if I let go, it gives them permission to do me wrong again. It gives them permission to repeat this sort of behavior. And that's not true, right? So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is making the decision to let go of the negativity you feel towards a person, experience, scenario, etc. It's not necessarily giving that person permission to continue to do that and say, all right, I'm letting this go. You have a clean slate, free range to do whatever you want. It's just us making the decision to say, all right, I feel a certain type of way. I'm really upset about this. This really hurt my feelings. It broke my heart. I'm pissed. All these negative feelings that, rise up. But forgiveness is us making the decision to say that even though that happened, I acknowledge that happened. I experienced it. My experience is valid. You're not going to try and convince me that what happened to me is not valid and I'm like bugging. But it's valid. It happened. I felt it. But I'm making the intentional decision to let go of these negative feelings, to let go of this anger, to let go of this rage, to let go of this hurt, because I don't want it to kill me. I see you. I learned about you. I learned from the situation. I'm not happy with what I've learned, but it's a lesson to move forward, and I'm going to deal with you accordingly. And you can make the decision to say, we can come back to our relationship, but these are now the rules and the boundaries. Or you can say, you know what, this relationship doesn't really serve me or my life. This season is over. Let's move on. But you don't have to hold on to all of those negative feelings. And a lot of times I feel like people are so reluctant to let go of their anger because they feel like it loses the validation of what they're experienced. And that's definitely not true. So let's dig in a bit further. How does anger affect me, right? Like, how does anger and unforgiveness and all that resentment and grudges, like, how does that actually affect me? We hear that cliche all the time, right? That anger or unforgiveness hurts you more than it hurts the other person. Is that true? Well, I did some research and I found out that it very much is true. It not only affects you in your emotions, but it affects you physically. It also affects you mentally. Doctor at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Aiken, said repressed anger, where you express it indirectly or go to great lengths to control it, is associated with heart disease. So even repressed anger that you have that you're not necessarily acting out on, and you're trying very hard to control it, is associated with heart disease. Even trying to tame that anger within you can make you sick. You would also probably not be surprised to find out that anger sits in your body, and it sits in your body in various different places. The most common place, according to research, that anger sits into your body is in your lower back. So if you're having some lower back pain and some unresolved issues, maybe some things that you haven't let go of, it could be directly attributed to that. But it also sits in your chest, your torso, your head, your respiratory system, your shoulders, which we know, like the tense shoulder thing when you get a massage or someone tries to hook you up here and get you to relax, but it's so tense. That's sometimes a lot of anger and stress, and anger and stress are directly correlated together. It affects your jaw. We know how that is, right? That when you're angry and you try not to go off Well, you're thinking about something and your jaw tightens up. So it affects your jaw. Anger sits into your jaw. It, of course, affects your sleep because it consumes you. I remember recently, earlier this year or some throughout the year, I've been dealing with some issues with some people. And sometimes it consumed me so much that I could not sleep. I could not sleep. I was just replaying things over and over and over in my head. I kept on thinking about it, and it was just making me upset. Like, outside of the situation had happened, but I couldn't let it go. I kept on replaying it and getting pissed and like, I cannot believe this happened, and just going through those emotions of unpacking everything. But it affected my sleep. I could not concentrate. My mind was always awake. I was always thinking. I was always processing. I was replaying things that were said to me. I was thinking about how I felt and how I feel, and now that I'm remembering all this stuff, and it was terrible. It was completely consuming, and I couldn't rest. Even when I was really tired, even when you get to the point where sometimes you're so angry about something, you're dreaming about it. Like, it consumes you when you're awake and when you go to sleep. Anger also sits into your hips, it sits into your lungs, and we see that this anger has the ability to creep up and sit and take residence all over your body in different places, and just sit there and be a homie and hang out, and you're not doing anything about it. You're just thinking like, this is the way I am, or this is how I need to. No. Anger is not part of your identity. You are not synonymous with the way that you feel. You are not synonymous with the way that you experience things. Like, you are beyond your feelings, you are beyond your experience, you are beyond your anger, you are beyond your unforgiveness. Like, you exist beyond that. And we need to be conscious of how much power we give to what we experience and how we feel, and how that overshadows the real essence, right, of who we are. And that is what I am appealing to you, to us today, to be more forgiving, to understand that it's okay to be angry, but we do also need to invest in the process of being intentional about the decision of letting these things go, because anger can poison us. It can poison our lives. It can poison us physically. It can poison us spiritually. Peter asks also in Matthew, a different chapter, I'll put it up. Peter asks Jesus, well, how many times do I forgive? And I think the math turns out to Jesus saying that you basically need to forgive like 77 times or 7 times 7 times. But I'll put the scripture up. And can you fathom having to forgive one person that many times? And if we think about the amount of times, right, that we go to God and we're like, God, forgive me, I repent, I do this, it's probably way beyond that. And if we are required to give one person at least and forgive them that many times, can you think about the fact that people are always going to offend you, people are always going to do you wrong, and life is always going to put you in a situation where you have to deal with the reality that you're not always going to be treated well, and there are going to be just some horrible experiences. But the goal is to not let it define us, not let it take over our lives, not let it consume us, so that we erupt, and the lava that erupts from inside of us consumes everything in our lives. The good things that existed before the anger, and the good things that are planted into our future, as well as all the bad things. And that's the terrible thing about anger, right? Because it doesn't just consume those bad things. It doesn't just direct like a laser beam at the person or scenario or thing that upset us. Like, we can't just, compartmentalize a lot of the time and just focus our anger on that one thing. Anger is such a powerful emotion that it spreads out to other parts of our lives, other parts of our experiences, other parts. And that lava doesn't just choose the bad parts, it chooses everything. And how many years do you go through that, right? Because we all know someone who started off one way, is another way now, and now people who've just met them, or people who've just met them in the last 10 or 15 years, now knows them as that thing, even though they used to be a different way. And so I'm conscious now of thinking like, I don't want my anger, my feelings, my experience, my frustration, and things that I don't let go of to change me as a person, because it absolutely has the power to do that. So when I ask the question, how long are you going to be angry? And how is that anger serving you? I ask that, like, is it serving you well? Or is it serving you in a way that's a detriment to your life, detriment to your experiences, detriment to your destiny, detriment to all the good things that is happening around you and for you? Or is it benefiting you? And if it is benefiting you, if you have the true argument that being angry and being unforgiving is better, is like bettering you and improving your life, I would love to hear it. I would love to hear how this anger and rage is benefiting you, because I don't see it. I don't see it. I've been thinking about it. I've been meditating about it. And the more I dig deeper, the scarier it becomes, because I'm like, dag, this feeling a certain type of way for a long time can really get you caught up. And you may say like, oh, I haven't been angry that long, and 5 years have passed and 10 years have passed, and you still enraged. And sometimes, we laugh about people in our family, right, who've been fighting a long time, who have beef for a long time, but don't really remember what they've been beefing about. And they're just loyal to the beef and the fact that they've been offended, but don't really recall all the details or have completely different perspectives about what happened. And we laugh about that sometimes, or we, chuckle, but we could easily become that ourselves. Dr. Karen Schwartz, who at the time of the article that I'm referencing is the director of mood and disorders and adult consultation at Johns Hopkins, she says that there is an enormous physical burden of being hurt and disappointed. This same article goes on to say that chronic anger, so anger that sits inside your body a long time, that you just experience for a long time, changes us and puts us into a fight or flight mode. And that fight or flight mode causes all these things in our body, like blood pressure, heart rate changes, immune response, and ultimately some of the changes that can occur that are very risky by keeping this anger and experiencing this chronic anger is risk for mental health disorders, experiencing depression, heart disease, diabetes, and other conditions. So we need to be more intentional about calming the stress, calming the anger, let go of the anger, being more forgiving, managing our expectations, or just, being intentional, right, about letting go of negative energy, negative experiences, and negative feelings, so that we don't put ourselves at risk for all of these physical ailments, as well as the spiritual and emotional ailments as well. So we need to really be conscious of how that anger that we are sitting with is a detriment to us, and it kills us, it poisons us, poisons our minds and our bodies, and often our relationships and those around us as well. I've talked about forgiving others and forgiving bad experiences and being forgiven of things and times that you've been done wrong, but I also want to talk about self-forgiveness. This is something that I've had to practice over the last several years, is forgiving myself for decisions that I've made that I've been unhappy with the results of. Can you imagine that, right? Holding a grudge against yourself, or just beating yourself up and having negative self-talk based on things that I did, or things that I feel like I could have done better, or, situations that I put myself in. And I've had to practice self-forgiveness as well, and holding resentment towards decisions that we've made, things that we've done, places that we've come from. All of those experiences is also so important to intentionally let go of, to say, you know what? I lived, I learned, I did it. I'm not proud of it. I could have done better, but at least I have more information now. And moving forward, I'm going to do my best to do better, to not repeat those mistakes, to not end up in those situations. And I have all this knowledge now. But a lot of times it is difficult to just choose to say I learned, and very easy to say, dag, I'm so foolish. I could have done better. Or to say, dag, why did I do that? And why did I put myself in that situation? Or why did I allow this to happen to me? And self-forgiveness is so, so important because of that, because you can sit in taking responsibility, which is a good thing, right? Taking accountability for your actions, but not to the point where you are putting yourself down or really feeling dread about a lot of things that you have done before. So self-forgiveness is saying, you know what? I disappointed myself. I didn't serve myself in the best way, but I'm going to let that go and I'm going to move forward and choose better. If you enjoyed our conversation today, if you have some experiences about how you've let go of some anger in your life or the challenges that you're experiencing with letting go anger in your life, like, comment. I would love to hear. Let's talk about it. It's not an easy thing to do. I don't want to fool anybody. I don't want to come off as saying like, it's just easy. Let it go. Let it go. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. I acknowledge that it's a very, very tough thing. There's a lot of conflicting feelings happening when you're letting go or forgiving someone or forgiving yourself, but it is essential to our health. It is essential to our purpose. It is essential to our destiny. It is essential to living our best lives, because living your best life is not just, chasing good experiences. It's also about being your best self mentally and spiritually and emotionally, and being forgiving, practicing forgiveness, letting go of that is essential to that experience as well. I'd love to hear from you. Please comment, reach out to me, DM me. Let's talk about it. And the journey continues. The vibes continue. Subscribe if you haven't. Share. I'm just so glad that you joined me today.